Donald Trump now leads in Polymarket by a 20-point margin in the odds to win the presidency because of early voting metrics that show the former president outperforming his 2020 early vote and mail-in vote shares. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with On Point Politics. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And so looking at the electoral map, guys, this is very simple. I've actually recently already projected Donald Trump to be the winner of the 2024 presidential election with my final map coming out on the morning of November 5th. However, at this point in time, with the way that the political environment is shaping up, the fundamental factors, the fact that he's tied in the RCP aggregate, the fact he's leading in my aggregate by 2 points nationally, very similar to Rasmussen reports, and it's like a point lower than what Atlas Intel came out with the other day with Rasmussen reports and Atlas Intel being somewhat decent pollsters. And so right now, Donald Trump is outperforming by a ridiculous amount in the general election, which leads me to believe that he has already won the general election, given some of the early vote numbers. When we look at, for example, Christian Hines, who's a very good Virginia modeler, he's been accurate in 2020. He got the margin for Biden off by like half a point. He predicted Glenn Youngkin's win in the state off by 0.08%. And in 2023, he predicted 139 out of 140 state legislative races. And what's very fascinating is when we see this, what's very interesting is voters that are low propensity, so 0 out of the 4 last elections, we see Donald Trump leads with those voters by 8,000. And again, this is just a, party breakdown. This doesn't show which candidate has gotten certain amount of votes, but we see here, looking at this split in the Dems and GOP split as of October 20th, what's really fascinating is even in 2021, when Glenn Youngkin won the state, as of right now, Democrats were doing significantly better in the early voting. Funny enough, they actually were doing better here than in the VA early voting back in 2023 and in 2022, believe it or not. And right now, Democrats are underperforming the last 3 years. And this has to do with Donald Trump, because the 1 year that Donald Trump is now on the ballot, we see that the gap has closed. They've actually dropped below 60. This early voting signal was way, way higher for Democrats back in the 2020 election. And when we look at, open source, for example, we see here as of right now, about 1.4 million ballots have been casted in the early vote. And according to Open Source Zone's early vote projections, it is a 5-point lead with Republicans versus Democrats. That is a humongous lead compared to before. Arizona, look at this, 398,000 votes. And this even includes Maricopa County, which is a very liberal county in the state of Arizona now. And when we see this, guys, he is literally going out there and the Republicans are up 30,000 right now in terms of the registration of the early votes coming in. Also, if we go down here, Nevada, 2020, the first day with the Nevada mail and early vote combined, we see that in 2020, Democrats led by 42,000 votes. Now they only lead by 2,000, which is a humongous difference, especially in a state like Nevada, where you don't actually have that big of a population. It's 6 electoral votes. The votes are roughly, give or take, it's basically about a little bit over 1 million votes are casted. And so a 60,000 vote difference would actually already flip the state to Donald Trump, believe it or not, because Joe Biden only won the state by roughly, give or take, a little over 30,000 votes. So in reality, this is actually kind of interesting because more than likely, right now, with the improvement in the early vote, Donald Trump is probably narrowly ahead in Nevada. And that's not even counting the election day vote as well, which tends to be more Republican favorable in most states. We look over here, for example, Nevada, Clark County. On the first day, Clark County, Democrats were up by 7 in the early vote. Now, Republicans are up 49. Like, that is just insane. looking at those numbers, the early vote in the rural areas is plus 65 for Republicans. We can also go ahead and see even more on this account. We'll also see that in Washoe, Republicans are up. So that's that. And we even see here, according to this projection, Democrats are up 52 to 39, essentially, in the early vote. So there's way less early votes, by the way, now compared to when it was just 4 years ago. So not only is it lower, it's also less of a lead, which isn't good for Democrats because they're not banking their votes. They're not banking their early voting. We see here, for example, on North Carolina County. I mean, look at this. In 2024, Republicans are up 19 points. And we see in 2020, Republicans were about tied with Democrats there. It's just a disaster. Even here, based out of these modeled projections, the lead for Democrats in with the Wisconsin mail-in ballot request has gone from D plus 32 to D plus 18. And there's about just roughly 33% of the ballots that there were in 2020 as of this day 4 years ago. So they're not turning out as many mail-in ballots as they were. And the lead is smaller, which is not good. Because when you have both, that is a really, really bad sign. And when we see here, look at this, guys. Look at this. So early North Carolina early vote, looking at 2016, Democrats were ahead by 24. 2018, Democrats ahead by 10, 2020, 19, 2022, just 5. And this is actually when Ted Bundy basically won the Senate seat. We can actually see it right here. That's when he won the Senate seat by 3. And now, with Donald Trump on the ballot, the Democrats are barely ahead in the early voting in North Carolina. And usually in early voting, the beginning days usually tend to be the best days, which is absolutely insane. Even looking at North Carolina right here, the early voting, look at this. Republicans are leading. They're leading in the early vote, which is absolutely insane. So there's a lot of stuff going on here that is showing that the Republicans are gaining substantially in early voting metrics to the point where it's unrefutable. Even looking at Florida, for example, the mail-in votes right now, Democrats are only ahead by 65,000 votes. That is not a good place for you to be as a Democrat. Like, it's just not. It's not a good spot for you to be in. If you're only ahead by that much in the mail-in vote, that is not great. Democrats are ahead in Miami-Dade in the early vote / mail-in vote by about 15-ish. So again, it's not going to be a 19-point win like it was with DeSantis, but clearly this is still way closer than what it was back in 2020 as well. And so when we break all of this down, this is just looking really, really bad for Democrats right now. Even looking at North Carolina, guys, like, look at this. This is what it looks like right now in terms of the early votes. This literally looks like a regular North Carolina map. This should be way bluer, and it was way bluer, except the problem is it's not. It is a lot redder than what it was in 2020. And you see that Republicans are down literally a point in the early vote. That's it. And then the indies, a lot of that shift, a lot more independents are voting in these blue counties. It's like, why would you be going from Democrat to independent? What other way would you be voting if you're going to be going from Democrat to independent and you see the shifts here the most? Would you then vote for Kamala Harris? I mean, some of them may, but it doesn't make any sense. You see here, look at this mail-in votes by party. Democrats were ahead, but looking at the early vote, Republicans are actually ahead in the in-person voting right now, which is insane, guys. That's absolutely insane. Even looking at Wisconsin right now, looking at the rate of returns, we see here that as of right now, looking at this, for example, we can look here and we see that, there's some mail-in ballots in, but overall, there's not as many as there were in the 2020 election. So that is also a big, big problem. And looking at Pennsylvania, Democrats did hit 1 million now, except the problem is Democrats got like 2.1 million in 2020 to Republicans like 600,000. So while Republicans are going to probably break their own record pretty soon, Democrats are way behind. And this quote unquote firewall argument doesn't make any sense because Biden won the early vote by like 2.1 million to like 600K and only won the state by 80,000 votes. So how is the firewall gonna go from like 1.6 million to just 500,000? It doesn't make any sense unless they're assuming that they're gonna turn out on election day, which also doesn't make any sense either because according to Atlas Intel, they're also going to be turning out mostly early in person and voting by mail. So this is a big problem for Democrats. And looking at the daily Indy, so basically an analyst from Nevada that looks at all the early voting, we also see Democrats barely ahead. And so when you take that into consideration and you really analyze what's going on with the data in the early in person and mail in ballots, it's irrefutable that Donald Trump is improving in the election. And right now, I actually have the belief that he's going to win a lot of the swing states fairly easily. This is currently what my election model forecast has. You basically have all the traditional swing states being like over 3 points for Donald Trump, and the popular vote's about Trump plus 2 to 3. New Mexico, I believe, is like a lean margin. So is Minnesota, Nebraska second, Virginia's lean, New Hampshire, and Maine. They're all lean states, all of them. And New York is likely. So it is a lopsided 2016 version of the map where, yes, he's winning the popular vote by 2 to 3, but some of these blue states have trended so far to the left that they still don't even flip despite him winning the popular vote. I may be wrong about that. Who knows? But right now, I do think that Donald Trump is in a really good spot to win this election very easily. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe if you want more content just like this. And we will see you guys in the next video.